Welcome, everyone. Stephen Blount here of the Blount Property Group, and we are here with episode number 3 of the HUMP Day Inspiration Podcast. And for episode 3, we are delighted to have the one, the only Mrs. Kim Grispo. Kim, thank you for being here with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you. And, I have a little nickname of Kim, of Yoga Kim. She's great. She's my yoga instructor, well, our yoga instructor at the YMCA, but she actually teaches at many different yoga studios, and we'll get all into that. But Kim, go ahead and please, if you can let us know a little bit more about you, so we know you do a lot more than being a yoga teacher. If you can share a little bit, please.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'm a mom and a wife. So my husband and I got married in 2000, so it's been almost 24 years now.
Oh, wow.
In September it will be. And then I have 2 daughters. Thank you. I've got 2 daughters. One is her name's Haley. She's 20, and she's a sophomore at University of Kentucky.
Okay.
And then I have a younger daughter named Hannah, and she's a junior in high school.
Nice.
Playing field. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. That's good. So married 24 years, 2 children.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a dog. I've got a golden doodle.
How old's the dog?
Her birthday is coming up, and she'll be 11.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know.
So what I heard, my takeaway, is that your husband is stuck with all of these women.
Exactly. That's exactly how he would put it, too. Even the dog is a girl.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, that is something.
Yeah.
Well, so Kim, you've been teaching yoga now for how many years?
Since 2014. Yeah, 2014 is when I got my certification. So I guess I officially started at the end of that year and started at a couple studios in 2015. So just under 10 years now.
Okay. Yeah, so just under 10 years. Yeah. And how did you get started teaching yoga?
So that's a good question. So I was always a runner and played soccer. So as a kid, in high school, even in college, I played soccer. And then after college, I just really got into running and doing races. Nothing more than a half marathon, but it was just a regular part of my routine. Okay. And I felt like I was getting injured over and over. I had a cervical spine herniation. I just had low back problems here and there. And I just kept hearing people say, including doctors and PTs, but say, you should try yoga, you should try yoga. Mm-hmm. So finally, I tried yoga. I went to the studio in Naperville. It's not there anymore. It was called Power of Your Own. Okay. And my first time, I was like, I love this. So I was hooked really right away. I didn't go as often as I eventually did, but I did find that the more I would do yoga, the more benefit my running would see. So I had my first PR in a half marathon after really starting to do more regular yoga practice. So I found out my trainings, I could shorten the days that I would run as long as I had yoga also in my routine. So that was helpful for injuries and for everything. And it really helped my mindset as well. Yeah. And eventually I found that it deepened my faith. And so that's what really hooked me. So the physical side of it kind of got me started. And I thought, okay, I see this is a benefit. And then the spiritual side, the emotional side, that's really where I fell in love with it. And I've been practicing ever since.
Tell us more about that spiritual side. You said, because it was more physical in the beginning, but it then got very spiritual.
It did. So I found that particularly during the meditations at the beginning or at the end of a regular vinyasa practice. So vinyasa is when you link breath with movement. Okay. So traditionally, it's a faster pace when you do vinyasa, but there can be slower paced ones as well. But there's all different sorts of types of yoga. And there's a lot of meditation. There's something called a yoga nidra, which is where you're kind of guided through a meditation. It's almost like a sleep, but your brain is much more aware than you are when you're sleeping. So I found myself one day in a yoga nidra, being guided through this visualization and literally feeling the presence of Jesus. Like, I felt him wrap his arms around me, and I can't describe it other than to say I just truly felt his presence. And it was beautiful. And ever since then, I've just tried to, when I'm on my mat, sometimes I pray when I'm on my mat. Sometimes I just say, Lord, what do you want me to hear? What message do you want me to hear? And it's different every time. It's not like that every time, for sure. But it still just gives me this other opportunity to draw a little bit nearer and closer in my relationship with God, with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit. And it's just a different way to glorify the Lord. So not necessarily at church, not necessarily at home at the end of the day praying, but it's in a space where I'm able to move my body and to just give him all the glory. So
I love that. I love that.
Great.
And you do such a good job. Again, Kim Grispo here with us on the Hump Day Inspiration Podcast. And Kim does such a great job in, opening the class, talking throughout, and then ending. And as you're talking about the spiritual side, I'll come into class and, you'll say, all right, calm yourself, everyone. And, we're trying to get our mind right. Yeah. And then you'll share scripture. Sometimes you'll share like a poem and, or something you heard or something that's been on your heart and your mind, and you'll share it with us. And it's always right on time and something that we always need. So I always appreciate that. And so I certainly can understand your point of your perspective of how powerful it can be spiritually. And I can also say in the beginning, when I first started yoga with you years ago, you would share at the end, like ending the practice, you would like prep it, and I didn't know what was going on, but you would end with namaste. So you would share some things that I was unfamiliar with, leading into the namaste, with me not knowing where you were going with that. To myself, I'm like, I love you, Jesus. I love you, Jesus. Because I didn't know what you were saying. I was like, hey, I know she means well, but I don't know what she's. Then as I got to know you, I was like, oh, she's actually praising the Lord. I didn't even realize it. So I think that is a myth out there that many think that yoga is, like religion. A religion, a different thing. Can you speak a little bit about that, kind of help dispel that myth?
And I do want to say too, in my class, so I do teach something called Holy Yoga or Christian Yoga at two different locations. That's not necessarily what I teach at all the places where I am. And when I teach a secular class, I don't necessarily speak from scripture, and I do try to keep it a little more neutral just to honor everyone's beliefs. Absolutely. I will say, though, that before most of my classes, I do say a prayer, and I ask the Lord, what message do you want my students to hear from me? And what do they need to hear? So that's been an important, I don't know if you want to say ritual of mine, but practice of mine as an instructor. So to that point, I don't want people who feel like if they're not Christian or not a believer, that they couldn't come attend my classes. Everyone is welcome, absolutely.
And you make that very well known, by the way.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you make everyone welcome. Absolutely.
I hope that I do, because
that's why there's a waiting. And everyone, if you've attended Kim's class, there's always a waiting list for her.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say. That's very flattering. So yoga, I feel like I said, it has deepened my spiritual life, and it's different for everybody. So, and everyone has their own beliefs, absolutely, and I honor that for everyone. And just for me, it's brought me closer to Christ, and that might be different for someone else, and I completely respect that. But I do not look at yoga as if it's a religion. I look at it more than just a physical practice. And the originators of yoga thousands of years ago, their intention was not to make it just a physical practice. There's many more layers to it. And so I try to honor that in my classes as well. And I try to relay some of those messages as well to my students. So
you do such a great job.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you.
I appreciate that.
But Kim, I know that some years ago, and please, and you share what you will and what you want to. But well, and I'll have you tee it up. So you're part of a new organization that you're doing, right? That's up and coming, and there's a reason why you got into that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. Well, I have to step way back to 2012, actually 2011 even. My youngest daughter, Hannah, the day after she turned 5, she came down with a fever. And that fever ended up lasting for 16 or 20 days. I forget exactly what it was. And then it would kind of come and go. And throughout that whole time period, we were having her seen by a doctor, of course, and we were realizing that this is more than just a regular kid fever, trying to figure out what that was. So over the course of the next few weeks, and eventually on January 13th, Friday the 13th of 2012, Hannah was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia at 5 years old. And that turned into just over 2 years of treatment for her. So it was chemotherapy, it was all different types of medications and spinal taps so that her brain could receive chemo as well. So just in case there was any cancer in her brain, which none was ever detected. Thank you. Thank goodness. Thank you, Lord, for that. But we still had to treat her as if that was happening. So when she was just over 7, she was done with chemo. And actually today, I'm going to cry. Today marks 10 years to the actual day. March 21st of 2014 was her last and final day of taking chemo. And so actually that's why I have this bracelet on. I wore this bracelet all during her treatment. It's orange because so orange is the color for leukemia awareness. And there's a little cancer ribbon there as well. So, it's really amazing that 10 years today, which is a huge milestone. Yes. And I have to tell you, if I could go back to that day 10 years ago, and of course, my husband and I and our whole family, we were thrilled that she was done with chemo and she would have this behind her. But there was such fear also. Like, what is going to happen now that she's not on medication? Is this going to come back? Is this going to lead to a secondary cancer or other chronic illnesses? What is going to happen? And if I could go back to myself 10 years ago and say, here she is 10 years later. She's 17. She's a junior in high school. Her worries are about her ACT and her SAT and getting into college and doing well in volleyball and having fun with her friends and hanging out with her boyfriend and all those things that I so truly, deeply wanted for her. It would have been such a relief to know that at that time, like if I had that crystal ball. But at the same time, I guess I'm glad that I didn't know that because it's given me and my husband and my whole family an appreciation for every single day in these last 10 years and to just have this different perspective on life and the little things that really matter.
Not to take a day for granted, huh?
Yeah, not to take a day for granted. So here we are 10 years later.
Wow.
And Hannah has been an inspiration for me. She's done so much for childhood cancer advocacy.
Yes.
And that's been very inspiring. Throughout this, I've also been very involved with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, actually even prior to Hannah being diagnosed.
Really?
Years before she was diagnosed.
I did not know
was
that.
involved with Make-A-Wish, yes. In college, I was involved with Make-A-Wish. Then when I was pregnant with her, I went through training to become a wish granter while I was pregnant with her. And then I started meeting all these wish kiddos and starting to grant wishes. And one day I remember exactly where I was. I was driving and I thought, I just want to get to the point where both of my kids are over 5 years old. Because in my mind, 5 years was like the number that a lot of my kids, my wish kids, the ones who had cancer, they were 5 or younger. And that was right before her 5th birthday. And literally the day after she turned 5, she had the fever that was like the marker. So I continued to grant wishes throughout that time. And then Hannah, like I said, she ended treatment and she continued then to thrive and to do really well and get more involved in childhood cancer advocacy. So this past November, I think it was, one of the places that she was involved with, it's called the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. They called me and said, hey, we don't have anything for Hannah right now in terms of a project, but we have an idea for you. And I was like, oh no. Okay, what is it? So she said, we would like to nominate you to run for Visionary of the Year for the LLS, for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And I was like, what is that? And so she starts describing it, and like literally my mind went black. I was like, this is too big for me. There's no way. I don't know enough people. I don't have enough connections. This is a fundraising campaign that needs me to raise a significant amount of money. So I said, I'm not going to say no right now, but I'm not going to say yes either. I need to think about it. I need to pray about it. I need to just like digest all of this. So she said, of course, definitely. And she even put me in touch with someone who ran for the position last year. And I talked to that woman. And I think it was 5 days later, I called them back and I said, okay, I'm going to do this.
You're all in.
I'm all in. Yes. So some coincidences that I don't really think were coincidences. I think they were little God winks. Him putting this in my lap saying, I want you to do this. I'm going to help you do this. I'm going to be here along with you the whole ride. So it's time for you to give this a try. So also during that time period, a good friend of Hannah's that she knew through something called Cure Fest, which is a childhood cancer awareness weekend. Hannah knew this girl quite well, and her name is Allie, and Allie passed away right during this time period after relapsing several times. So I felt like that was also just a reason, like I need to fight. I need to fight for those who can't fight, and those who are currently fighting right now. So for all the Bush kids I've met along the way, for my daughter, for friends of mine who even growing up, they've experienced blood cancers and other types of cancers, and just hearing God's voice say, you can do this. So I said yes, and here I am. We are just a couple days away now from kickoff. It's a 10-week campaign. It starts April 5th and it runs through June 15th. And it's a fundraising competition. So there's me and I believe maybe 9 others in the Chicagoland area, and we're all competing. But we all win because we're all doing this to raise money for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. Yes, a very great cause. And another reason I said yes was because there are 3 different mission pillars for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, one of which is their research mission. And within that, they have this initiative that's for childhood cancer. And it's childhood cancer research. It's an initiative called Dare to Dream, the Dare to Dream Project. And that is specifically to find treatment that is less toxic for kids. Because the treatment children have to endure is so harsh on their bodies. Like I said earlier, it leads to secondary cancers, oftentimes chronic illnesses, or simply a relapse of their original diagnosis. We need to do better for kids. We really do. And so that is what this project is supporting. So everything that I raise is going to go specifically towards the Dare to Dream project.
100%.
Yeah. Of my money is going to go towards that initiative. So
that's
there's
the research pillar.
That's the research, yes. So the other pillar, which is so important for people to understand, is their patient services. So I wasn't too familiar with LLS while Hannah was fighting, but during that time, I wish I had known a little bit more. And what's important for people to know is there is so much free resources, so many free resources that are available to families that are fighting cancer. So anything from nutrition to mental health to even just getting rides from place to place. There's all sorts of support groups. Anything you can imagine is there, and it's available. You just pick up the phone, call LLS, and they will put you in touch with the right people or the right information, the right resources, whatever you need. So that's a super important part of LLS. And then their third mission is around advocacy. So they do a lot to lobby in Washington and local government as well in order to pass laws that really encourage equal access for all. So regardless of income, regardless of your demographic status, whatever that may be, that everyone has equal access to the proper treatment for leukemia, lymphoma, Hodgkin's, and then myeloma is another blood cancer. And then we are blood cancer, much of the research that is related to blood cancer then affects all other cancers. So a lot of the initiatives and a lot of the research and work that has come out of blood cancer research then can be disseminated into the rest of the community as well, and really helps with treatments for other types of cancers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I've learned a lot.
That is a lot.
It is a lot.
So just to recap.
Yeah.
So the first pillar is research.
Yes.
The second pillar, you're going to have to help me with, and I know the last...
Patient services and support.
Patient services and support.
Yeah.
And the last one is advocacy.
Yes.
Okay. All right. One more time. We got research, patient services and support, and advocacy.
Exactly.
These are the three pillars that you're leading the way for.
Yes, LLS is doing that. Yes,
and Leukemia Lymphoma Society.
Correct.
All right.
And
now,
my team, we're called Kim's Cancer Crushers.
All right.
Right.
Yes.
And so we are specifically supporting the research mission.
Kim's Cancer Crushers. Oh,
yes.
man.
Yeah.
Love it. I love that.
I just
I'm
set up.
pumped up right now.
Good. So please follow us. I'm
know.
so terrible with social media. And so I'm
We're
learning
here
my
for you.
ways. Thank you. And
Yeah.
I have one of my best friend's daughters who's a sophomore in college. She has been very helpful. Her name is Kaylee.
All
And
right.
she's been very helpful with me there as well. So
Okay.
I have a Facebook page set up specifically for Kim's Cancer Crushers, also on Instagram.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to disseminate all sorts of information about the campaign as we go along, and all the events I have set up
We'll
there.
definitely have this video available for
Yes.
you too. You can put it on there.
Thank you.
So, and I know that the link isn't live just yet.
Right, I
So
can't
it's
take it.
Kim Cancer Crushers. However, people will, by the time they're seeing this, potentially it could be live.
Right, it will be.
And you don't have that link right now, but how can we point them in the right direction?
Right, so, and I will have that link for you very, very soon. So by April 5th, by the time, and then all you have to do is scan the QR code or my link to my specific LLS web page is there. And you can click there to make a donation or on that QR code. Or you can go to Kim's Cancer Crushers on Facebook or Instagram. And then you'll find
same name on both.
Yes, same name on both.
All right. That's it. Well, we can do that. Kim's Cancer Crushers on Facebook and Instagram will lead us in the way that we need to make a donation.
Absolutely.
We will definitely do that.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Even like every little bit counts, even though I have a pretty aggressive goal. I don't want people to think, oh, well, my $10 means nothing. You know, and I can't give $1,000, so I better not give anything. No, every dollar counts. A lot of companies will match also. So if you're making a $25 donation, you get your company to match, and that's a $50 donation. So that's super helpful too.
That is good. You know, I want to go back to Hannah. So Hannah, I know, because being friends with you and you shared with me, and I got to see the video. Hannah had a great opportunity of giving us a speech at the White House, right?
Yes. Well,
or she visited the White House, but the speech, well, tell us about that.
Yeah, so she had an opportunity first to go to Capitol Hill, and she and some other kids who are either currently fighting or have fought cancer, and they walked around Capitol Hill and spoke to different staffers. and to talk about this Give Kids a Chance Act that they are hoping that will get passed in Congress. So she was part of that.
Tell us
And
that act
then
again.
Give Kids a Chance
Got it.
Act. Yes, thank you. And then that was on Friday. I believe it was a Friday. And then the next, or I think it was a Thursday. Either way, then the next day we were at Cure Fest, which was also in Washington. And Cure Fest is this very large gathering of cancer fighters, those who have lost children, those who are currently fighting, those who have already gone through, and who are currently fighting, but maybe they're past. So, for example, Hannah considers in some ways still a fighter because her speech, so she got up and she spoke in front of about 700 people.
Wow.
That were there, and then it was recorded as well. And she talked about the mental health effects of being, or mental health implications, I guess, of being a survivor and what that entails and how you go through this mix of emotions, right? It's not just about feeling grateful every day that here I am and I fought this and here I am on the other side. It's that, but it's everything else. There's frustration, there's anger, there's questioning, there's guilt, there's everything all rolled up into one, and it's okay to experience all of that. And that's a message that's so important, and it just really landed really well with a lot of people who were there, and I hope it speaks to kids right now, their parents who are fighting, their siblings. I can't say enough how my heart goes out for siblings. So when my daughter Haley, when her sister Hannah was diagnosed, Haley was 3 years older, so she was 8 at the time. And that's a lot for an 8-year-old to take on. Yeah. So as much as we tried to include her in everything, as much as we tried to make it appear less scary, it was still scary, and we couldn't answer every question. And her best friend, who's her little sister, is going through this battle. And a lot of times it was harder on Haley, quite honestly, because Hannah would be with us either when we're with her at the hospital or going through treatments overnight. We would have to be in the hospital sometimes. And so Haley sometimes was left with kind of to her own devices in some ways. I mean, of course, she was with family and friends who loved her dearly, but it was still scary to be pulled out of that. And she would feel like people would just be asking, how's your sister? How's Hannah doing? Yeah. And she's like, what about me? Yeah. And that happens to siblings a lot. She never expressed that she got sick of it, but I do think that there were still a lot of implications for her as well, and that she still feels a part of that within her and carries some of that with her still today. And it's so important because I saw that with my Make-A-Wish kids and their siblings, and it's really important that we make them a part of it, and that they understand that they're going through this and they're included in it all, and they're just still loved dearly.
What's a message, or is there anything you could say to parents that may be going through this with their children, and so with maybe their child that might have received a diagnosis, or to the parents that to help parent the sibling of this? Any advice? I know that's a loaded question, and there's a lot there, but
I think it depends on the age of the children too, how much you say or don't say, and even just the personality of the child. But in general, I would just say keep the communication lines open, just like with any parenting issue. Same thing here. Don't be afraid to talk to them about it. Depending on the age of the child, obviously you cater that discussion so that it's age appropriate. But just keep them involved. Make sure that they are feeling included. Make sure they feel empowered also. So if there's something one of the siblings can do to be a part of supporting their sibling, whether or not it's playing with them at the hospital or I don't know, whatever they're good at, and that's something I think that's important for those siblings to feel like they have some control, because this is a time in life where everyone's feeling out of control, and everything is unknown. So the more you can make each kiddo feel like they're important, that they have a role, and that whatever makes them unique in this situation, really spotlight that and let them feel good about that. If they're really good at baking cookies, then have them bake cookies and share them with the family, or have that as a thank you to someone who brought gifts over and mom doesn't have time or dad doesn't have time to reciprocate or to say thank you. So that's something the kiddo could get involved in. I don't know, leave that up to the parents too, but letting them feel empowered, I think is really important.
Well, thank you, Kim, for that.
Yeah.
So just to recap everything, we've covered a lot.
We covered a lot.
This was good. I love it. And but one of the things that comes to my mind, I would love to have you back, I would say in 3 months, and then hopefully that will be a celebration. Right? So we will be able to share on how you crushed your numbers. And there's a cure in the making, right? And we're just all the efforts that are happening. So we'd love to have you back later so we can talk about that.
Okay,
But for right now, so we'll be sure to have everyone go to Kim's Cancer Crushers on Facebook and Instagram. They can get the donation information there, but also staying in tune with what's going on with you. And then, possibly you can post, if Hannah will allow you to, post her video on there too. I think that would be,
that would
that'd be something great. I know I saw that video and she crushed it.
She did a great job.
Such a good job.
She did.
Yeah, that was excellent. She very, very strong young lady.
Thank you. Yeah, they both really are. Yeah, Haley is as well. And I'm super proud of them both. Well, thank you.
Good job, Mom and Dad. Keith, way to go too.
Yes, thank you.
Keith, Kim, Haley, and Hannah.
Yes, and the dog is Harper.
And the dog.
The dog.
The doggone dog.
The
the doodle.
Well,
Kim, thank you so much for joining us for episode 3 of the Hump Day Inspiration Podcast. And we got yoga tomorrow morning.
We sure do. I'll see you then.
See you then.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.